if I was to give like the really like my business school degree like answer, I would be like, use social media as an extension of your brand. So if you're an actor, make it clear that you're an actor on a page. You know, you can go on Instagram specifically and change in the settings it to be like a business and say that you're an actor. Maybe link your IMDb, have your reel accessible on, especially like if you're looking for representation. People can't find these things if they're not out there. So make sure that you have your reel up. Make sure you have your headshots available. It doesn't have to be, your whole Instagram doesn't have to be about your acting career,
No.
by all means, but make sure it's accessible and available.
Now it is my pleasure to introduce our incredible panelists today. I'm so excited because I'm a fan of every single person in this room. We have David Iacono, Kayden Muller-Janssen, Mayan Lopez, Madison Thompson, and Bebe Wood. Thank you guys so much for joining us today to talk about social media marketing and how you kind of tackle all of that as actors and artists. So I'd love to just like kick off with how important do you feel your online visibility is to your career? I don't know if anyone wants to jump in first.
I was like, I can start. It's very interesting. I think it's incredibly important. I think especially since my show that I'm now on, Lopez versus Lopez, that I co-create, I star and produce, is the first one to ever come from a TikTok. So it is based on my real life family and content that I captured during the pandemic of my parents. And those dynamics now go into the show of reconnection, how I reconnected with my dad and how I put, as an artist and an actor, I used something from real life, how my life was affected by divorce, mental health, and really just wanting to connect with the audience that I was creating. And that got noticed by our showrunner. And now we are now filming our second season. And it actually helped sell the show because the numbers of these videos and the engagement helped the studio see that this is an idea that can be translated to TV. And I still do that now as in promotion with the show and integrate, I think we all do with behind the scenes and wanting the fans to be able to see and feel a part of the art that we're creating.
So how did you do that? Like, was it just like you were making videos for fun, or like where did the idea come from to start doing that?
So my background is I majored in comedy writing and performance as well as acting at Columbia College. And I studied at Second City and did the conservatory program. So in sketch and improvisation. And I wanted to integrate that into social media. I think those like quick comedy videos that really are, a distraction from, everyday life and just what we do, create and wanting to make people happy. I love to make people laugh. The one that got the show started was me duetting one about something was happening with my family. My dad very publicly cheated on my mom, and the divorce is what caused our separation. And what I did was I duetted someone talking bad about my family and wanted to set the record straight. And I thought, who's going to see it? I thought it'd be funny. I twerked upside down on a wall and I put text around of, my mom still gets hella money in alimony and she's better off. And, I just put it out there, and along with, my parents like bickering with each other. And I did a whole series of why do my divorced parents still act like they're married? But that was the one that got our showrunner's attention. She saw the other content that I created. We had a very similar story, and we kind of created the show based off my real life. And we've been able to do that in the episodes, and still, I think with branding and the things that I believe in of mental health and being, Latina, wanting to put this love letter out to saying specific issues within the community, along with many other things.
Wow, the power of social media and twerking.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. My mom didn't want me to post it, so love my legacy. Don't listen to your parents, kids. But trust your instincts. Trust your instincts. You sometimes your first idea is the best idea.
Anyone else want to take on how they feel, online visibility is important when it comes to their career?
I was so curious to hear about your answer, Mayan, because I knew about the TikTok, and that's so crazy and so cool. I think my sort of the personal importance that I hold to social media is not like very high, but I also understand that it is such an important tool to not only maybe I guess sort of get attention, but also to connect with people that have supported your career for years or for months or for weeks or whatever, it's a lovely way to sort of have a personal connection to the people that make your career and your passion possible, which is amazing. It's always strange for me because, I am aware that sort of numbers matter and this and that, but at the same time, I sort of try and approach it from just like a more personal approach, because especially when it comes to social media, I think it's so easy to sort of get overwhelmed by it and a little like, this is bizarre, because it sort of is, but I do think the best part about it, at least for me, is being able to sort of have some sort of relationship with the people that support you.
Absolutely. Anyone else want to chime in?
Yeah, I think that I could absolutely relate to that, especially, working on a Disney Channel show. We have a lot of a younger audience.
Mm-hmm.
And I started posting TikToks and little videos behind the scenes working on set. And, I realized that it made a lot of people who watched the show and fans of the show, they felt like they were almost experiencing it with you, with all the behind the scene clips and just seeing how much fun that we were having. And then also, going on Disney Plus and then watching the show or that specific episode where we took that really fun video. And yeah, I definitely think, especially in this generation, a lot of younger kids are on social media all day long. So I try to, at least with my content, I try to make it as fun as possible and make it feel like you almost have a bit of a personal relationship with me and you're experiencing everything that I'm doing on set as well. So
I love that. So that's also interesting because it sort of brings up that idea of like, how much is like, too personal, or, how do you balance the personal versus the professional, or like, how much, I guess, do you see yourself as you're like a brand and a company versus just trying to like connect with people and put your own life out there? I don't know if anyone has any thoughts.
I think I do. I think to kind of piggyback off of what has been said thus far, I think what I was kind of taught growing up with social media and being an actor is that you do have to very much look at yourself as a brand and that it is very much a business. And while I do think that there is like definitely some truth to that, and I do understand how important it is, I do think there's also just like a certain way that you can communicate with the people that follow you, or just the way that you like hold yourself on Instagram or TikTok that is like just kind of colloquial and personal. And I think people really respond to that. And I also think it kind of counteracts any type of like unhealthy side that there is to social media about, how I feel like even I do it sometimes, comparing myself to like what people so selectively choose to be seen. I think there is kind of something that is very healthy and something that very much resonates with people about just like not worrying about all the hashtags. I guess hashtags are important, I guess, but just the language and verbiage that you use and the stuff that you actually do decide to share that might not traditionally be seen as this like business professional way of promoting your stuff. Like I said, I think it kind of connects to people a little bit more. And that doesn't even mean to me like oversharing and like, talking about like posting exactly where you are, who you're with.
Right.
Just sort of about, I don't know, just like not worrying too much about sounding professional and tailoring how you speak online. I think it really like, I know when I see people that I am fans of post on Instagram and they're like you can tell that it was kind of just like stream of consciousness. This is how I'm feeling about the show that I was just on. This is like some personal moments that happen behind the scenes that makes me want to watch the show, and that makes me want to follow them even more. And I think something about that authenticity is just appreciated.
I was just about to say, authenticity.
Yeah, I think David has such an excellent point that obviously when you're approaching your career, this idea of approaching yourself as a brand, as the CEO of your own company is such a great form of thought, but it's really important that you nuance that thought with the spontaneity and like listening to your gut and the content that you're putting out there. And I think that's a great way to approach your brand in general as an actor. It's really important to understand what your type is, who you are. I really like to make sure that my social media matches that because it's an extension of who you are. It's a place that people can not only come and connect with you, but they can also find you. There's industry people. People don't pass out business cards anymore. They're looking at your Instagram, your IMDb Pro, your TikTok. And so I think that social media can be a way that you can enhance your brand and reach out to more people, but it's not make or break. It's really like you will get out of it what you put into it. And so if you're the type of person that it's really taxing on your mental health, then maybe it's better to put energy into other areas of your career. But if you find a lot of fulfillment from putting content out there, I think it's another way to, in the same way when you tape an audition, like you're never going to book the role if you don't tape the audition. If you don't put things out there, it's a way to connect with people you would never have connected with before.
I love that. And I think it's so true that it could give you an opportunity to find something maybe that I found Grease Rise of the Pink Ladies because of all the incredible TikToks and things that you guys were posting. And I was like,
absolutely. We didn't have as much visibility at first with the show. And so one of the ways that a lot of people found us was through viral social media, specifically TikTok songs, because we were a musical series and dances. And, with TikTok, like you can put so much thought and creativity and you're like, this is going to be the video that blows up. And then it is something that you get completely unplanned. And that's exactly what happened with our show. We had 30 original songs in our season, and the song that, not that everyone disregarded, but no one really thought that would be the song to pop, completely popped and had millions of streams on Spotify and Apple Music and stuff like that. So it's so unexpected. But also with that in mind, that unexpected, like, if you really want to invest more in your social media, that means you need to be on social media actively, being aware of what the trends are. Something with TikTok is like those sounds are really important. And so coming up with unique and creative ways of which you can put your own spin on some of those sounds or those viral conversations that are happening. How can you be a part of that conversation, but add a little bit of you into it?
I love that. And that's another thing. It's like social media is constantly changing. So how do you guys stay up to date, if at all, on like those trends or like kind of what's, I feel like even over the last few years, like we've gone from like, photos to now video is really big, but it's not even just like horizontal video, it's vertical video, and like things are constantly changing. So how do you guys kind of keep up with all of that?
I think I probably do it very poorly. I think the answer is I don't. I have when I open my phone, I'm always like, oh, this is what's happening today. And that's delightful to see. But I think, I don't necessarily know. I always do the trend like weeks after it happens. Like the only thing that I've ever got on top of before got popular was the Tyla water dance, which I did not share publicly. That's only for my eyes.
I think that was half of the population as well. No, but I get that. I'm not on social media all the time, but often enough that I will say I've kind of kept up with the trends, but I'll say some of them work for me and some of them don't. So what I try to do is kind of take inspiration from a lot of the trendy sounds or the video content, or sometimes I make like little skits, like comedy skits and stuff like that. So I try to take inspiration from other people's content and then kind of make it my own as much as I can. But I will say I'm not the best at staying trendy and all of that either. So I can relate.
Yeah, I try to do a balance of, it's very interesting because right now I'm in production and I try to do a mix of current trends, but also I've been very successful at kind of integrating nostalgia as well as a tool. So one of our directors was Phil Lewis, who is known as Mr. Mosby. on The Sweet Life of Zach and Cody. And I was thinking of what are, a lot now. We were kids watching that show, and now that's one, like a very young audience that I'd like to like bring into the show. So I think of like who I want to hit. And I thought of what is a very iconic scene from that show. And I did the Prindle scene with London Tipton and him. And I did it outside in a golf cart outside the stage. And I redid it and I posted it on TikTok and Reels, and total it got like 14 million views. And then within that, I did, watch Lopez versus Lopez on, Tuesdays at 8, like in underneath, and saying this is our director. I even just had Danielle Fishel direct and, Boy Meets World, but I had her be Pookie with, Pookie looks fire today. So I try to do, and even I have stuff that I've used with the people around me, my co-stars, finding those trends, doing sounds, using even the sets that we have. I think of like that's great to use like as props, using everything around, but also, I got lost on the Universal lot and I was following my mom, and I posted like a video of me, trying to get lost, and, but also seeing, they can see the outside, but also showing those authenticities. I think I kind of try to do because also it's like people are like, well, everything is content, and how do you separate what you film and what you don't? But I think sometimes the point and shoot approach of, I just see a moment and I can see, oh, this could be a really good dynamic, or what can be, clickable. And also think with sounds, like I can't think of any off the top of my head, but there's some that no matter if they go back or if it's gone, it was so popular at that time that you could repost it and it'll still be successful, because it's one of those ones that has like 4 million and so many people engaged with it that with the algorithm, if you use it, it will just come back. So
I'll bank a lot of those. I have like a folder on TikTok where I bank sounds specifically for projects. And for Greases, I would bank all the sounds like while we were shooting popular things. And then I pulled a list of, for example, to use Mr. Mosby, there was like, there's a Welcome to the Tipton song. And so that's one that just constantly comes back over and over again, a trend that people recognize. And so I pulled all of those and sort of made my own little shooting schedule of different moments. And there was also times on set where there was authentic content, but it was, I was able, as you explained, Mayan, to build in a combination of authentic and also planned out so that I had a more robust sort of arsenal of things to post once the show came out. But also key, being respectful of the rules of a set. We're all actors here. We recognize there's a lot of rules about costumes and NDAs and sets. And so, whenever you are shooting social media, to be really aware of what the rules of the sets are, and always ask a producer if there is a question, or a PA can connect you with a producer. It's better, I think, in that situation to ask for permission.
Absolutely. Banking and timing them out.
I would ask for permission first. That's really important. So, make sure that is always in the back of your mind, that you're respecting those rules.
That also makes me wonder, are you guys doing all of this kind of like work to find these moments yourself? Do you have a team that's helping you? How, are you, collaborating with someone to help you kind of manage your social strategies, or, how does that work for you? I'm sure it's probably different for everybody, but.
Yeah, it's different. I do a lot of it. I did the first season, I did a lot of it myself, but I also, I feel very fortunate about a series there's someone from the network that, because they've seen that social media is so important, and they even do it along with the other episodes or the other shows on NBC of, we're on SVU and we do blah, 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 blah. But I have someone that can help from the social team that comes sometimes a couple days a week, but within the day-to-day things of we warm up before we go and do a live show, and we just kind of show our, funny dynamics that way. sometimes I also feel like it's very hard to find a balance of when you're really in production or when you're out of production, finding the balance of work with that, because you also want to focus on your job. And that's not something that you always want to think of all the time. So, just doing it when you can, and just trying to I think stories help with that on Instagram, especially, doing polls and, what do you think I had for breakfast today, and having the options and things like that.
Right. I also feel like I've been lucky enough to be a part of productions that have like social teams, like on set and stuff. And I think that, to what you were talking about, Mayan, makes you feel like you can just focus on really what you're there to be doing in your performance and everything, but also feel like you don't have to worry too much because there's someone that is like taking care of this with you and for you. And oftentimes they're like very collaborative and open to being like, do you have any ideas? Do you want anything you want to do? So I think that's always felt really comforting. And then also on top of that, because at least for me, I feel like because I know that someone is taking care of that, like kind of very strategically thought out social approach to sharing behind the scenes stuff to social media, then I feel like, okay, well, now that those bases are covered, I can also just share whatever I feel like I want to, you know what I mean? Like, whatever, even in terms of like staying on top of the trends and stuff, I feel like whatever I think is funny at the time, I don't really worry about too much catering it to a certain voice or something, because somebody's taking care of it and they're usually really good at their jobs. So now I can just kind of post whatever I think is funny, or like, I remember on season 2, the summer I turned pretty, I had like my Polaroid camera and I was just taking a bunch of pictures of cast members. And then after all the social content that was curated for the show was posted, I just threw those up. And I think people really liked it. And everyone was like, oh, that's another way I think to kind of, again, balance the being authentic, but also kind of making sure that you're strategizing and planning out the way certain stuff's being perceived.
That's awesome. I was also curious if you guys have mentioned a couple of different platforms, Instagram, TikTok, stories. Do you have like a favorite platform or any kind of trick that you like to use on your social media, just to, anything that you've learned that's kind of helped you out?
I mean,
you go, babe.
I was just going to say, at least for me, since a lot of our audience for our show is a lot younger, I was doing a lot of videos to promote our show on TikTok, just because I knew that's what they were pushing the most for that age range. But Instagram is really good as well. I know that they're pushing Reels a lot right now, so that's really good to be promoting your show on there. But at least for our kind of family, kids age range, I would say TikTok was my favorite. And we, on our show, we didn't have a social media team. And my castmates, really Malachi, who's the youngest one on the show, we were the only two making content really for our show. So we were just trying to get as many videos made as possible in between takes, still being respectful, of course. But just trying as much as we could, because we didn't get to have people who came in and shot for us. So we just, put our phone up really quick, try to get some fun little clips. And then that's what we would use for our content. But I mean, I think it worked out pretty well. We got a few million on TikTok, like views for each video, and it was good. But I would definitely say having a social media team on set would have made our life a lot easier when promoting the show. But yeah.
Anybody else want to contribute? Favorite platforms?
I prefer Instagram. I think I definitely understand it more, but I'm so bad at Reels. Like, I think I just stick to photographs and try and capture those moments on set or even off set, just like hanging out with your cast members or whoever, things that you'd want to share with people, and also sort of maintain a scrapbook for yourself, the memories that you make while you're doing the project, which there's always so many fun memories, and being able to look back at those is incredible. But I recently sort of started to TikTok, and I started with, some of the sounds, like you mentioned, some of the trends, and I was like really getting into it. And this was like 2 years ago, and I don't think I maybe posted like 4 TikToks since then. I just sort of was like, you know what, I think I'm going to stick to my Instagram because I understand this format better. And now I sort of just occasionally post a TikTok of me singing. But it is interesting to kind of see, sort of what supporters are on the TikTok versus the Instagram. And that's always informative too,
I wanted to add really quickly, especially for those of you out there, the last year in this industry has been really difficult. Obviously, everyone is aware that we went through a really big strike, and I know a lot of people aren't working and have not worked in a while. So social media can be a great way if you're actively on a show to promote your work, but also as an artist, just to promote yourself. I think especially if you're an actor who has special talents, whether that means you do special stunts or if you're a singer or a dancer, it's a great way to show off your other capabilities and skills and talents that make you you in addition to your acting, and is a great way for casting directors to find you, especially if you have an unusual look or they're looking for something specific or a specific skill. I know from Greece, when they did our show, they did a national open call, and our casting team searched to the ends of the earth to find and give everyone the opportunity to audition. And that meant looking through YouTube, looking through TikTok at singing videos. One of our cast members, Ari, was given an original audition, but was thought of for the role because of a video that they posted singing on TikTok 2 years prior. And so I think it's a really great way for, if you have different character types that you like to play and you want to expand your range. If you're a storyteller, it's a place to tell more stories. So use social media as an ability to market yourself in different ways and connect. Even if you aren't currently working on a show, there's lots of different ways to use it.
I think that's really, really powerful.
That's a beautiful point. Yeah.
Because it goes back to also what Mayan did, putting out things that, people saw it and it led to something bigger. I'm curious, like, if you guys kind of are thinking about that and ways to book the next job through social media. Like, how do you seek to be perceived through your headshots, your reels that you post or videos that you post, and like how you've been able to sort of achieve that and kind of like cultivate, what you want people to see, whether it's viewers, fans, or casting,
I think when it maybe comes to headshots, and I think maybe this applies to even just photos of yourself that you choose to share on the internet. But I think versatility is the biggest thing, because so much of casting is out of your control. I mean, you could maybe be the best actor for the part, but if you don't look like what the creators were envisioning, I create stories of my own sometimes, and you have very specific ideas of, I think this character should feel like this or should look like this. And so much of that is just dependent on, if you happen to sort of match that vision that kind of already exists. So I think if you, sort of have versatile images that represent you honestly, but are also sort of I don't know, either there's a large range of different aesthetics, vibes, whatever, or you're posting pictures that are sort of versatile enough to where if someone looks at them, they can kind of, I guess, project whatever they wish to see onto you. But I also think a huge important part of that as well is just capturing yourself honestly, and making sure that you shine through, because naturally people that want to potentially work with you in the future want to get a good sense of who you are as a person, like who they're going to be spending all day with, on set or whatever it may be. So I think maybe versatility is the most important thing, I think, in terms of just capturing images of yourself.
I would have to say, thankfully, I feel like I have a look that I'm able to change it up pretty often. Like now I have red braids in, and normally I have short, like brown afro. So when I when I have my headshots done or my reels and stuff like that, I try to switch up my look pretty often and have it, be versatile and give different looks to these casting directors or anybody that's looking at my content, that I'm not just in this one box. You can kind of change my style and change my hair a little bit to maybe suit whatever character that I'm going to audition for or a project that I'm interested in. So thankfully, I agree with that as well. Having some like different photos of you that really change your look, I think gives you a better shot at also booking some things.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Like you have the glamour shots, you have the shots of like, I think one of like, I always think of like the Insta dumps of, you say like life lately and you show, maybe like you going to an event, you with friends, maybe you with like just minimal makeup or just, you're at lunch or you're just like, you take a selfie that you like and it's just, showing exactly different parts of you. I also think with regards of people letting know who you are, also what your beliefs are or what's important to you and what makes you as a person. I am very vocal about being a Latina and representation and Hollywood. And that's something that I take as a responsibility because of the viewers and fans of our show, really relate to me or being, one of the shows is the only like majority Latin cast on television. I get a lot of people being like, thank you for, you represent us, you show us. And so I go to, these events or I try to put the culture into my Instagram posts or even, communities and things that are very important to me. And one is the LGBTQ community and lifting up a community that has always supported me in the times of my life. And, I'm a guest judge on RuPaul's Drag Race. And that is something that yes, thank you. I'm like today of, being able to be an ally for this community and using my platform and voice and also like seeming very trustworthy or that people enough where, I think you have to protect yourself as well. You have to have a certain persona, but I think we've talked about that showing enough, but I think just even being trustworthy that people and your fans can relate to you and see why they were a fan of you in the first place.
Oh, I love that. I'm also curious, if our viewers could do one thing to work on their social media presence today, what do you think is that one thing that they could do that would maybe help them?
Yeah, I think, Madison always has really good points on this.
I think it depends on what your social media presence, how you want it to be. I think everyone is different and everyone has a different personality. If I was to give like the really like my business school degree like answer, I would be like, use social media as an extension of your brand. So if you're an actor, make it clear that you're an actor on a page. You can go on Instagram specifically and change in the settings it to be like a business and say that you're an actor. Maybe link your IMDb, have your reel accessible on, especially like if you're looking for representation. People can't find these things if they're not out there. So make sure that you have your reel up. Make sure you have your headshots available. It doesn't have to be, your whole Instagram doesn't have to be about your acting career by all means, but make sure it's accessible and available. And that it's clear that if someone comes along their page, whether it's your public page, maybe you have your own personal one, a private one for family. I have my own chocolate Instagram account. Like you can have multiple ones. Like it's really up to you. But make sure that you at least have one page as an actor that's really clear and has your materials. I always say like the 1-click rule, like a person shouldn't have to click through multiple pages to get to something, or else it's barriers of entry to get to your material and less time that they're watching. So it should be 1 click away.
That was a good point. I think also the consistency as well. And knowing that your fans, I think, because I've noticed when I've taken breaks from posting, or even sometimes like I'm still like not the best with it. And sometimes I feel like my my Instagram could be very professional. And I notice sometimes when they don't see that, my engagement lowers if I even have like weeks or, even a week between or 2 weeks between posting, because you have to be consistently in your followers' minds and know that you're on their mind. Because people's attention spans, they're scrolling, like they can, forget and know that there's someone that they're going to post. I know I'm expecting something from them that day. And I think that's like always very important as well. Like I've heard rules of like 2 to 3 times a week, and you just have to post on your story at least every day, and just, being out there and actively on social media, and just like as you're actively living your life.
I love that. Now I want to move over to some audience questions because we got a lot of good ones over here.
Oh,
so one of the first questions we have is, how many of you manage your own social media versus having a social media manager, and what are the pros and cons to that?
Yeah, you go, David.
I don't know after you.
Yeah, I do it myself, but I think sometimes I do have someone that helps get, I'm trying to get through my agent, especially, using the different departments within, the agency. If you have an agent, of trying to have a social media, like I have someone that can help with TikTok sounds and, figuring out and sending out, what is something that's active or those active trends. But I do it myself, but I think like it would be helpful sometimes to have someone helping you if you can, even if it's someone that in your life that is, naturally just very good at these things, just getting their advice on that.
Yeah.
But
I
you
know.
did a good job.
I agree. I do mine as well, but I have friends that have somebody that does it for them. And I think it's just a matter of like making sure that you're okay. Like, know that I think, as most things in life, it's a complicated thing. It's a layered thing. Social media, I think, it is a very, very, very powerful tool for your career. But I also understand, because of stuff that I've went through, that like it can be tough on your mental, and I think your mental health is important, more important than anything. So I think it's just a matter of like being in touch with yourself. Maybe if like it's starting to get too much, you can kind of have somebody else take care of it. And then if you feel like you're in a place one day where you don't need that anymore, you could take it back over. I don't think it ever has to be like now for the rest of my existence, this person's going to be in charge of my image. I don't think it has to be that frightening or that scary. But yeah, like I said, I manage my own. I know other people that have somebody. It's just a matter of like, I think, being aware of the effect that it's having on you. Yeah.
At least for me, I create all my own content, but I do have a social media team that will post for me on TikTok and Instagram, just talking about mental health. There were times, especially when season 1 first came out, that I personally felt like I could not be on social media because it was starting to become a little bit more of a negative than a positive of my mental health. So I kind of took that step back and said, I still want to be in contact with my fans and keep everybody in the loop of what I'm doing, but not exactly having to see every single thing that is being commented or shared or this and that. So for me, it did help having them. But there were also times, like, I'm a musician as well, so especially when I'm planning on releasing a single, I'll definitely have my social media come on board and be like, okay, this month we really got to come up with some really good content, put our ideas together, and we'll plan everything. Like, as you said before, Mayan, like the 2-3 times a week posting, getting in people's head, getting on their feed. And I will say having a team does help, but you can totally do it on your own. Don't need a social media team at all, but it does help personally. So.
All right, let's move on to the next question. I love what you're talking about, when it comes to planning around, like, let's say a single or something like that. So another question we have is someone asking about any tips on content planning.
Yeah, with me, I try to think of sounds or things that were popular, or I mean, I have so much banked that I can't post yet because I have done things with the show that exactly like the rules of wardrobe, and it's something that's going to be a reveal and that I can't post yet. But I mean, I use CapCut like on like to edit like all the time. And so I have a bunch of videos that I posted with like guest stars or things of that week. And I just have them kind of stored in an album, and I just kind of have them, or even on the app itself. But I do have things of that week. I kind of think the week before of, okay, who's coming, or, what is something in this episode or what I'm working on currently that could be translated in a dynamic that could be successful, like on Instagram, or because I've been leaning more towards Instagram. Like my reels, sometimes I post it on TikTok and then I post it on reels, and the viewership is like crazy different. And I feel like I'm able to gain more followers also through Instagram easier if a reel does really well. But I think I do try to plan ahead as much as possible, but also allowing that spontaneity there as well. And just asking permission. Even today, and we were doing a run through, and there's something that happened yesterday, and I had a feeling to film it, and then I did it today, and it's even better than the one yesterday. And so I'm like, oh, now I'm gonna like try to figure out, okay, I'm gonna put this one first in a video, and then I'm gonna put that in a video, and then it'll be able to see the difference between those two. So just even thinking of something like that, of this versus this and that versus, things like that, I try to plan out.
Yeah, it's so interesting because it almost feels like you have to wear multiple hats now. Like not only are you an actor or a singer or whatever you're doing for that project, but you now have to be your own, social media manager and, shooter and, idea person. And it's a lot.
Yep. Tripods help.
That's good.
Just point and run, I also was trying to think, I was like, I don't always use sounds. Also, like I could announce one of like, Marshawn Lynch's guest or a guest star, and like I just try to, catch a pass from him, and something like that of like, hey, I'm single, and I think like me catching a pass from you will help my game, and he was like, okay, just go along, and I'm like, okay, something like that still shows personality and like me being like goofy, but also something that will, be able to like integrate into.
Mayan, I wanted to touch on something you said about the app that you used. To go back to that question about timeline and planning things out. I think you said CapCut. I use an app called Splice.
I use Splice too.
I feel bad that this is being recorded because I love TikTok and Instagram, but I will say it's really hard to edit an app.
Yes.
And I find that it is easier to film my content, especially if you're doing multiple takes, if you're working with another actor and you want to film content on a project or someone else where maybe the lip syncing wasn't perfect and you want a couple of tries. It's a lot easier to film out of app and then edit and then upload and add a sound on. And that makes editing, and also if for some reason the video gets deleted, it's like being on set and they do multiple takes and it isn't live. So that is definitely like a key part of my planning, is actually shooting content out of app and banking it and then eventually posting it. And then another weird trend that I notice, there's sort of this idea of you need to post sooner rather than later, because if not, you're going to miss the trend. But when it comes to specifically posting around projects, I think it's really important to be aware of when the social conversation is happening about your show, and the fact that a show might come out on day one. And if it's Stranger Things, then people might be talking about it the day it comes out. But a lot of times it takes people, a week or two to binge through episodes. It depends if there's episode drops. So being aware and tapped into when the conversation is happening around your show, your character, being aware so that you can time posting that content at the right time. I waited all of my Pink Ladies content that I baked. I waited a month for our show to have at least half of our episodes out before I posted, because it just organically takes time for fans to come around. And once I noticed the fans posting edits and stuff of the show, I realized that the conversation had begun. And so now it's time to actively participate, and you're going to get better viewership and people reacting, conversation, comments, sending along to their friends, because it's actively something that they're talking about.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. That also makes me wonder. I mean, this is also an audience question, but I'm curious as well, because I know, David, you mentioned that like on your sets, there was, social media managers kind of helping capture content. And I know, Madison, you guys were you capturing your own content to go out with to promote the show yourselves? Yeah,
we did a lot of our own. We did have a team that came in at the end, and a couple of times, like through our EPK, which is an electronic press kit moment, where they'll come and do the show. But I would say, other than what was going on our main Rise of the Pink Ladies TikTok channel, anything that you saw on our own social media accounts was all organic stuff that we had pre-filmed during the season.
Oh, I love that. I mean, you really like made that show like hit audiences. And so I'm curious, so like going off of that, have productions expected a certain level of your personal social media contributions? Like, how does that come about? Like, for instance, with the Pink Ladies, like, was that stuff you guys were like, we want to do this? Or was that like the cast, or was that people being like, you need to do this to help promote the show, or you kind of taking that on yourselves?
I think our cast, were really big fans of other shows that had large social media presence. And as young adults, we recognized the importance. We had a wonderful social media team, and they were very supportive. And when we started, they very much encouraged, but also set the parameters of what we were allowed and not allowed to post actively. But I will say a lot of that, of the, at least social media on our own pages, was social media that we decided individually, and not everyone participated as much, some more than others, but I think we recognized how important it was to the conversation, especially because of sort of what our show went through at the time, which is a whole other story. But we recognized that there was a really large community that really resonated with our show, and we wanted to connect with them and explain to them that they had a voice in our show, and what was happening with it, and that their voice mattered, and that we heard them. And so I think that's why you saw us like really go the extra mile about connecting with people. But I think it's different on every show.
Like, I think they're always almost like, keep your content like positive and celebratory, and just keep like just positive. That's what, and also just like they want to be also very mindful of like, you don't even get like some of the crew background in the background as well, like people that wouldn't possibly like consent to it. I think also what helps is like, don't also keep in mind like you can collaborate posts on Instagram, so use like your co-stars or people that don't be in like being able to collaborate, so that it'll be on both of your pages, and being able to have like a wider like net of that as well. But I think even with, I will sometimes, if I have like the social media number, and I will send something I posted or I'm thinking of posting, and be like, what would you think of this? And so I do ask like, sometimes like approval if I think it's a little like could be between. So don't even like, pretend to ask like questions, or you can just like take it down, be like, whoops.
I will say during season 2, was it season 1? It was the finale that I shot a video, and my character had a pretty big thing going on at the finale, and I was holding this big tool, and I posted it by accident, and I didn't get in trouble, but they were like, you need to take it down. And those are definitely things that you have to be a little bit careful about, like whatever outfits you're wearing or the set, if anything could basically spoil the season, that could really suck. And plus our episodes came out every Friday. So every week when we would be, doing rehearsals and doing run-throughs and stuff, I'd always be taking videos and I'd save them, kind of how you both were mentioning, saving them until those episodes were released and then releasing them, having people comment about how they loved the episode and doing all of that. It is, I think, really about timing as well when your episodes are releasing. But you did your Madison, right? Is that your name? For your show, did you say that half of your episodes came out in one month?
We had 3 drop at first and then weekly after that. So I waited till half of the season was out because, as I said, it just took people time. They were hour-long episodes, so it just takes time for people to get off work and watch a show and get caught up. So I wanted to give time for people to, because also like if you have content that is in context with what is actively happening on the show and plot points, you want to be respectful of spoilers, but also an audience is going to resonate with it so much if they understand the context of what's going on or the character or what's going on in that moment.
And also depending on like what project you're going to work on, and like, for instance, mine is multicam. The way that they release the episodes is way different than other projects and TV shows and films. So also considering that when you're making your own social media content for whatever project you're working on, you should consider timing and giving your fans time as well to watch the show, as you said, and kind of give you a response back online. So yeah, that's fine.
Awesome. And we have another question. I think that they want to know basically like before you booked your current or your big role, how social media kind of changed for you, whether that was positively or negatively after like kind of getting that exposure.
I think that's a complicated question because I don't know, I'm sure it's different for everyone here. Because after every project, after every film or, show that you do, your social media presence kind of changes depending on what the show is, what the subject is. Your audience is kind of ever growing and ever shifting. So I think it really depends on the project that you've worked on, but naturally the more you work, the bigger your audience gets, which, can be a little strange and daunting at times. I know that I probably felt the most comfortable with actively posting on social media during COVID. I had just done the first season of a show that I was on at the time, and during COVID, I kind of forgot that I was an actor, so I wasn't really focused on the business side of Instagram. I was more focused on the advocacy side of Instagram and also just like documenting daily life during the pandemic. And that, when that sort of chapter of life closed and I moved on to the next project, the social media and the things that I was deciding to post sort of become entirely different. What I post now feels very different to what I was posting and what was sort of relevant back then. So I feel like that is, it's sort of a challenge with Instagram and with other forms of social media, I'm sure, because your audience it's ever shifting. So you kind of have to evolve with that. But it's also exciting because you get to sort of connect with more people through that process.
Yeah, for me, it's very interesting because what helped me get my following and what is part of the show is the tension and the estrangement that I had with my dad. Like I would put out really honest things, and my dad is this, George Lopez, a celebrity, and some people were like, "You're ruining him for me," but I'm like, I am just being honest, and this is a family dynamic, and mostly the people saw the family dynamic. And I think I was more honest pre-booking and filming my show than I am now, because I have to find a balance of, I am still authentic, but I do not share as much because I do have to think I also have a show that I'm trying to promote and protect, but I'm still keeping enough of, what was still successful was my mom and my dad videos. And I still do those that are, separate. And even if I do things with my dad on set, it's still more of our dynamic. But in regards to, sharing more like personal things, I will share enough, but I've definitely kind of gone back inward, which I think is still, a balance of, we're still people, we're public figures. And I think that still kind of was a seamless transition. But, something I'm being, honest about is that, you have to protect your show because you do want it to be successful and your project and what you want that for yourself as well. So it shifts.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I remember I was I had just, because occasionally I'll work with a publicist when I have certain stuff coming out, and I had just kind of done this, like, I guess kind of just finished this campaign with the publicist because I had a couple of shows coming out at once, which was great. And then I wasn't working too much after they had came out, like immediately after they came out. So I was just like kicking it in my room one day, and I was like, I might as well just like go live on Instagram. I'm kind of bored, and I went live on Instagram. And I was like, hey, it's good. Like, I'm kind of bored right now. And like my whole team, like my phone starts like, what are you doing, dude? Like, we just did this whole campaign about how you're working and like how you're putting in work and everything's going so well for you. And you're telling people that you're bored. Don't do that. So it's just a matter of like, again, it's such a weird line of like being authentic, but also maybe just being slightly more filtered with how authentic you're being and be like, I don't have to share every single thought that I have, you know what I mean? Even if I am just being honest and like having a good time or whatever. Since I always think back to that
filter.
Yeah, exactly. A filter. I always think back to that moment when I was like, oh, this doesn't even seem initially saying I'm bored to me is like, oh, okay, I'm just bored right now. But like, you don't kind of initially understand how impactful some of the things you say can be, especially on the internet where like everything kind of lasts forever. So yeah, filters are needed for sure.
I feel like with social media, everything can be really taken out of context. So it's like we want to be real and share our thoughts and share our feelings, but at the same time, you kind of do need to have that filter and read some of the things that you might post right before you put it online, because people will take that and whether it's positive or negative, they will turn it in any way that suits them. And when our show came out, I had to learn how to navigate social media. Having that attention was very new to me. I had made music before and it gone like a little viral, but not the way that the show did. So certain like hate comments and things, I had to learn how to not let it affect me. And for instance, Mayan, I have no clue how you dealt with that. You were a trooper. You took that hate and you turned it into a whole success, which kudos to you. And I hope one day I can take that same path, because I think that's amazing as a young woman as well to do that. Because there's a lot of hate out here that I think it affects us in ways that we don't even realize sometimes. So really just learn how to navigate your social media and realize what's good for you and what's not good for you. What works for you might not work for others as well. And yeah, it's kind of a trial and error. I feel like with anything in life, you especially social media, you're sharing, you're so open to everybody's opinion. It is something that you have to protect yourself from a little bit.
You can't please everybody either. So
very true.
Just do what you do. People want to feel connected. I think everyone in general, the human condition just wants to feel seen and wants to feel heard. And I think that's just, if you can help that and be someone for someone, we always bring our personal stuff into our art. And that's what we do on social media as well.
Absolutely. Now, I'd love to go around real quick and just hear, like, if anyone has anything to share of, what they have coming up, what projects you guys are working on.
So, yes, I am on. We're filming season 2 of Lopez versus Lopez. We premiere on April 2nd, which happens to be my birthday, which is like really weird how that turned out. But we are on Tuesdays at 8 and 8:30 with back-to-back episodes. And I am a judge on RuPaul's Drag Race. episode 12. So depending on when you see this, it was the one on March 22nd, and you can see that on MTV if you watch tonight at 8 p.m.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, that's what's going on.
Anybody else want to share?
I'll go. I have this show coming out soon that I was lucky enough to be part of called Dead Boy Detectives. It's going to be on Netflix. I'm very excited about that. I also recently wrote and directed my first short film, which was like an incredible experience for me. We're in the post-production process right now. So I guess keep your eyes peeled for that as well.
That's awesome.
We just pretty much finished up with our press run for Mean Girls, which is now available on streaming and I think Paramount Plus as well. So you can watch that there. And now I'm just working on some music stuff. I'm a songwriter, so I'm doing that right now.
I love it. I've already watched it 3 times, but that was me.
I watched it 2 days ago. You were amazing.
Oh my God, thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Thanks. Oh, should I go next?
Yeah.
Okay. So I have a movie out on Tubi called Classmates, directed by Danielle Fishel, who you also worked with.
Yeah.
Amazing. So for sure, go check that out. Tubi's also free, so you don't need to pay for subscription if anybody wants to go check it out. Season 2, Boons About You, all episodes streaming on Disney Plus. Always get that. And I'm a musician as well, so I'm also focusing on music, my next album right now. So I have a single coming out this month called Don't Come Back to Me. My manager's gonna kill me. I was not supposed to say this online yet, but it comes out this month. It's called Don't Come Back to Me. So please keep an eye out for that as well.
Oh, we get exclusives.
Yeah.
Wait, I'm so excited. I have like all this music to listen to, all of these projects to watch. I can't talk about anything I'm doing currently, but what I can share is I'm also producing. So I'm working on a new musical that we're doing a big reading of this year. I'm also a writer in addition to full-time acting, because why not add all the hyphenates? And so I have 2 features that I just finished, which is super exciting.
Oh, wow.
So lots of fun things in the work. I'm glad that we're all out of this strike and excited to get back to work.
I forgot to mention streaming. The show will be available next day on Peacock, and if you never watched my show, the first season is available on Netflix.
Yay!
Awesome.
Okay, now I'm done.
You guys are killing it. I'm so excited. I want to thank you guys so much for this conversation. Let's see here. On behalf of the SAG-AFTRA Foundation, I want to thank you for sharing your experiences, process, and craft with your fellow performers. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. Again, I'm Kristen Maldonado from Pop Culture Planet. Thank you. This was awesome.
Thank you, everyone.
So great, everyone.
Thank you guys.